Okay, so I started recording, and then I'll send you this recording, and this would also be good for you to send to your PLC, your other PLC members too that couldn't join on short notice, just so they can help
Okay.
you maybe process through and give you some
Okay.
insight. So, so we're talking about your putting together your proposal, and at the end of this class, then your proposal will have to go to the academic cabinet, and there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on it there as well to kind of say, yes or no to move forward with that. So you'll get a lot of feedback to help bring some clarity to the process.
Okay.
One of the reasons that I was getting a little uneasy with you trying to, I don't want you to try to do too much. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big proponent of kind of keeping it simple, because the final project is it's a real bear, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to have someone that you can really trust and work with to help you as your dissertation supervisor. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I think Dr. Barnes is great. I mean, she was in one of our um, main speakers in the transformational leadership course. So or people who had input in that. So I think I think it's helpful to have one dissertation supervisor, and I think it's helpful to have your problem statement that's really clear, and then out of that, your whatever your dissertation ends up being, you have your your chapter on literature review and some of the standard things that are there in the dissertation. But then when you get to the research methods, you those kind of stem out of what you're trying to do. So if you want to have a media piece, which is your workbook, as a part of the as the main focus of your dissertation that Dr. Barnes would help you to get to, I think that's a great idea. And then some of your research methodology could help to kind of drive that. The business plan, then again, I think it's doable. We have enough resource faculty at BGU that can help with business plans, and Dr. Smith might even be willing to help step in. I just don't know if that's a side thing that you're doing or if that's going to be the main focus of your dissertation. So my main thing is, sorry, I'm kind of rambling a little bit. I just want to help to bring some clarity to that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian, that I like the idea of the workbook and her review of the literature and a process of interviewing for the methodology will contribute to that greatly. And then the business plan can come later. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the dissertation, does it? I have a feeling that Starr is being encouraged to go that way. I don't know if that's Starr's own doing, or because every time we talk, it's going away from the business plan because she's unsure about that. And then again, when I'm reading her work, there it is again, the business plan. And it seems to be a real stymie place for her.
Yeah.
So are you saying that, I love KIS, keep it simple. And, with the workbook as and then having that group of experts reviewing it, is an awesome idea, because that's something that's going to be publishable.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And
is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. If you can maybe steer that, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. So if we table the business plan for just a minute, and you're going into your dissertation and you want to have a media piece in there, which could be this workbook, which could be directly applicable to your context there to move your work forward, and also then could be published. And BGU has different networks that we could help maybe get that workbook published, or kind of go that route. Then your that stems out of your problem statement, which is related to your I believe it's related to your nonprofit, right? Is it still related to Jacob's House, the workbook?
Yes. Yeah, it's basically your curriculum and guidebook for the kids, right?
Right. It's
right.
the first phase.
So then then that would help to shape your research methods, where you would interview potentially kids. You could have surveys, questionnaires, some different, that's where we would work to get you to a point where you had some, your research would kind of then fill up this workbook or curriculum. And that would, and then, so if you just stay focused right there, Dr. Barnes could help you down that path. And then that would be when you're done, because what happens at the end of your dissertation is you kind of have this mound of research. And then once you graduate, then you can write books out of that. You can do business plans out of that. You can do a whole bunch you can write articles. That's going to be your big mound of research, because you become the world's expert in this one thing that you drilled really deep on. And then for
exactly.
Yeah.
And then your research and your workbook and your other published pieces are it's the meat behind your business plan. What do you know that makes you think that you can pull this off? Well, I have all of this prior research. So this is the groundwork that is going to be really, really important for your future business plan when you're working on it.
So Dr. Talbot, do you remember when we had the PLC with Dr. Smith? He suggested the business plan in order to get the funding to work that out.
Funding for what?
For Jacob's house.
Well, yeah, you have to have a business plan. You're not going to get
as a dissertation.
Yeah, I know, and I don't know why. And if we knew how to do a business plan for your dissertation, I don't know how a methodology works for a business plan. I can't visualize that.
Me either.
So I just don't feel helpful to you, because I don't have that kind of a head, but I do have, I can visualize your methodology concluding in a piece of literature that will serve as a resource to a business plan.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, your dissertation should be the before the beginning stuff for your business plan.
Okay. Totally. I believe that. Dr. Talbot, I'm sorry. Can you please introduce yourself to Dr. Brian? Because I just figured you guys knew each other, but I don't think you do.
Okay. So it's Dr. Brian and not Brian. What's your first name, Dr. Brian?
Brian McCabe.
What was it? I'm sorry?
Brian McCabe is.
Oh, it is. Your first name is Brian. Okay. All right. So I was Starr's master's advisor, and we created a individualized master's degree for her at Fresno Pacific University, and I was her program advisor for that. So we've worked together. Let's see, you finished in 2015, Starr, and you might have started in 2013 or so.
Yeah.
And so putting together, I'm retired now, the director of the Pupil Personnel Services Program in the graduate school at Fresno Pacific. So school counseling, school psychology, school counseling is my background. And Starr's work with aged out foster youth, is right up our alley. So it was, and she did an excellent job with her thesis. And so we've worked, long and hard together. Starr's worked very long and very hard.
No, we have.
So.
Okay.
That's great. And a little bit briefly about myself. So I had Starr recently this was the transformational leadership course, right, Starr?
Yes.
So from January through March. And so that was, I think, your last class before moving into this dissertation stage.
Right.
And also discerned that coming to the end of this educational journey that Starr was experiencing a little bit of education overload, which often happens towards the end of a doctoral degree. So, but I'm heading up the Doctor of Transformational Leadership program, and I just started that in April. And so I'm excited about that opportunity. I'm a pastor in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, though, so that I'm an urban pastor. I went through BG's Doctor of Ministry program in 2012, and I actually did my master's out at Fresno State when I lived out there at an education administration. So I was up.
Oh,
But
I have my master's is from Fresno State too.
oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. I think mine's a little older than yours.
I'm not gonna say. So. Well, I think that actually helps me to know that you have such a long relationship with Starr, and I really appreciate that, and especially if you helped her to navigate through the masters and then on her PLC into her doctoral program.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
I just want to get her finished, and whether that's finished with a with the last two letters as ED or starting with a PH, it doesn't matter to me. I want her finished.
I want to help with that too. I do. Which is, I mean, that's awesome to hear, and I'm so glad you're continuing to walk with her through this.
So can she have permission to let go of the business plan? I think she needs that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So
for right now, so she can dive into what she really loves, and putting together this workbook, and updating her research, and just getting that part completed, and then she can, I don't know, you know people that can eventually help her once she's graduated, and then she can still work with folks from BGU on business plans, or connect her with other professionals in the area that have that expertise. I mean, there are a lot of nonprofits who start from nothing, so there's got to be some resource out here that helps nonprofits get off the ground. Yeah,
that's why in my initial email back to you, Starr, you probably sensed that I was initially, my initial gut feeling was we need to table this business plan, and let her focus on what she really wants to do, which is this workshop. But I sensed that you were feeling, number one, like, oh, I should do a business plan because that's the right thing to do, or it's so much needed. But I don't know if that's where your heart is.
Right.
And Dr. Smith is brilliant. He's probably the smartest person I know. And
he is.
So for him, I mean, I'm on some of these, I just had a PLC meeting with him yesterday that he directed, and he's just a brilliant guy. And he was bringing in all these different perspectives, helping to coach up another student who's working on their proposal.
Yeah, he is.
And so I certainly wouldn't discount his pushing you to do a business plan.
Right.
But I also know if Brad was on the call, he would say that we're a student-centered university, and our goal at the end of the day is to get you across the finish line.
Right.
So what you're most passionate about, and this is about you. This is about you at this stage where we're here to coach you and walk alongside you. But in your gut, in your heart of hearts, what do you feel like you want to do? And I would even say, writing a dissertation is, I don't want to say it's a miserable process, but it's really intense. It is. And so in those moments, those quiet moments where you're by yourself and you're like, I can't write anymore, or I don't have time to go do that, I don't want to do that, you have to fall back on that burning thing that's in your heart and in your mind that you just have to get out.
Right.
And the thing that you're most passionate about, because that's what you're going to fall back on to press through those barriers to get your project done. And so if you feel like if you're just kind of reaching for this business plan thing, or because it's the right thing to do, or because Brad suggested it, I actually think that would be detrimental to you.
Me too.
It might bog you down. So.
Okay.
But I do want to say, I'm certainly not an expert in business plans. I remember the email where I was suggested. I work with several nonprofits here in Pittsburgh, and I do a lot of coaching with other BGU grads that are running nonprofits to help them with strategic planning and things like that. There would probably even be, as Dr. Talbot suggested, there would be some people who just do that for a living all the time that are a part of BGU's network, that after you graduate, or even, as a side project, if you have time to tinker away at it. But
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
that could really help you in not an instant, but could really help you with that based out of your dissertation after you graduate.
Right.
Yeah, because the first thing you want is some cred, So when you approach somebody with a business plan, you have cred behind you, credibility. You have your doctorate, and then work with those folks, and that's awesome to hear that BGU has that network, and then possibly someone who's in the area that can have face-to-face time with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do you feel, Starr? I mean, in your heart of hearts, are you willing to say, okay, I'm going to let the business plan go for now and work on this workshop and workbook? That's going to be the essence of Jacob's House.
Yeah.
So because you have to have the infrastructure, and that's what I see your life scripts and your workbook, and I see that as the infrastructure. And Jacob's House with the business plan is just all of the the walls, but you need to have space and life within, and that's what your workbook is.
Okay, so okay, I totally appreciate that, and I totally appreciate what Dr. Bryan just said as well. It has to be, it has to come from the heart in those hard times. So I think I should table the business plan. But my other question would be, would I just work on life scripts, or, would I just leave Jacob's House alone totally? Does it just, life scripts is the first part of Jacob's House's program.
Well, you could, your workbook, and life scripts is just part of the workbook. Because if you're looking at a book, you're going to have some of the similar parts of a book are like a dissertation. You're going to have an introduction. You're going to cite the literature, and then you're going to have an action piece in it. But every action piece has to have some kind of introduction and then some type of closure. So I can see your workbook or your this novel or whatever you want. No, it's not going to be a novel, but
it's going to be a workbook.
This workbook as a working piece that you can say this kind of intervention or this workbook would serve a purpose, such as, you don't have to mention Jacob's House. I don't think Jacob's House needs to be. It's a community that would support AFYs in their transition from high school to college, in their first 2 years of college. So you don't mention, and you can mention all of your chapter 4, I think, is all the biblical stuff. If you, sorry, but you could cite that and keep that in there as a reason for this is your reason for doing this. And you could mention your 2 visions. I think that's important too, if that's what
It's in there.
Dr. Barnes thinks is important.
I haven't spoken with her yet on the dissertation.
Okay. I think some of this stuff is really good to include. Okay. And I don't think you need to, if you want to, I think your workbook should be it could be used anywhere. So not just in an urban setting, like Fresno. Or something like that. So I'm just looking, you have a couple paragraphs on geographical and demographic description. So you have a lot of stuff that you have in later chapters that would all go in what I would say a review of the lit in chapter 2. If that's the way BGU is. I don't know how they organize dissertations. I kind of count it as chapter 1 is your reason for doing this. Chapter 2 is your review of the literature. Chapter 3 is your methodology. Chapter 4 is your blood and guts. Okay, what you found, and chapter 5 is your workbook.
Yeah,
okay?
It's a little different on theirs, but it's it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I'm looking at my thesis. My thesis was like a dissertation, Dr. Talbot.
well, yeah, and you quote a lot of yourself in here, and so and that's awesome because you've already, you already have done a lot of the footwork.
Right.
So you just have to possibly update it and then find those experts who are going to review your workbook.
Yeah.
And then probably, you're also going to have that feedback from them.
Right.
So someone people who are experts in the field are going to say, okay, yeah, I can see how this is going to apply. I can see how this supports it. And, I don't know, Brian, would she have to have some kind of an evaluation tool that they would use to review her group of experts that are going to review this plan?
Dr. Payne answered that one, I think.
Yeah. Did you say, what did you say, Starr? Dr. Payne answered it?
He did. He actually said that nothing has to be tested, and the intervention is the book itself. And the feedback would be in the results, basically, from the planning session.
Oh, okay. So you're talking results of the one portion where you're actually implementing this.
Yes.
Sort of like okay, so that's where intervention comes in.
So,
okay, so
the process that we're at now is getting this proposal, and that's where it'll go to the academic cabinet for them to look at it, a really shell version of the 7 chapters, or if there's a media piece, we'll see where that kind of fits in there.
So the media piece doesn't have to be completed then. It's just the proposal is, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. Yep. This is what I have found out. This is where it's leading me, and this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so got that, Starr?
Yes.
Okay.
And then once you get approval from academic cabinet, then your proposal is only going to have, say, 5 pages in the chapter 1 introduction, and then the first thing you'll do is write your chapter 1 to be a 15 to 20 page introduction. So you'll start filling it out, and then the research tools that you propose in your proposal, you'll actually do those then later this summer into the fall. And then you'll be writing and doing your research and implementing everything that you said that you were going to do. And then because right now, like, your remaining chapters are going to be here's where I'm headed. And then when you get this thing done by the end of this calendar year to start moving forward with your technical reader and all that stuff, then you'll actually have a last chapter that's your recommendations. And that's where, as Dr. Talbot was saying, that's where in your recommendations chapter, the last one, you'll say, so one of my recommendations moving forward is I'm going to have a business plan that stems out of this research.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So you'll have some next steps that you'll have coming out of there.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
So, and then really from January until graduation in June, your whole project will be written, your whole workbook and all 7 of your chapters will be written by this fall. Things will move along pretty quickly, and you'll do your research pretty quickly this fall. And then from January through June is mostly just technical readers, second readers, oral review. And at the end, since it's you have your oral review, probably about a month before you would graduate. And that's the part where it's not an adversarial process. It's more you working where you have a group of people who are kind of, we can get into that another time, but
yeah. So keep in mind, Starr, your proposal is what I'm going to do. It's all what I'm going to do. And it's not that long. How many, you have a lot of repetition throughout each of these chapters. So you want to kind of, because you repeat lots of your lit review in later chapters, and that only has to be done once.
So that was my question. So since, that clears up a whole lot, because I'm thinking, what goes in the lit review with the business plan? Is it how to build a business plan, or is it the business itself? So that's gone. So I'll just forget all that.
Gone. No business plan. I don't want to see business plan until
until we're done, huh?
Yeah.
So the lit review would be based on the classes what's going to be inside the book, or what?
No, your review of the literature means like everything that you've read, everything that everybody else has said, that this kind of intervention is necessary. It's important.
So what I have is sufficient. I just have to.
What you have is more than sufficient.
Okay.
More than sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah, in your literature review, if you think on a macro level, okay, here's what's happening with foster youth that are aging out of systems. Here's literature on this perspective on that, on this perspective on that, and this.
Okay.
So you're kind of building here's what's out there. And then when you do your research, you're not saying all that other stuff is bunk and my workbook is the greatest thing to come along in the world to fix all foster youth. You're just contributing more to that. You're just, with your original research, you're kind of helping to build the field. But it's also has to be really practical to the work that you're doing in your context for BGU as well. So yeah. And you have, Dr. Payne is helping you to navigate through that, the different components, right?
Yeah, we're pretty much done with that. It's June 17th, we turn in the proposal. And I just wanted to be able to turn in a clear, concise, pathway so that it will be approved. So I can get started.
And I can even hear that a little bit of relief, because I feel like if you had to do a literature review all over again on business plans.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going back and forth and back and forth. Like, what do I buy? What do I do?
Every time I talk to you, Starr, it's like, okay, we have put the business plan aside. And then all of a sudden it pops up again.
Oh.
Let it go. Let it go. Let it go.
It's gone. It's gone.
It'll come back eventually, but not right now.
And you won't be letting Dr. Smith down. I mean,
I really trust Dr. Smith.
Yeah. I mean, you're welcome. I don't want to cause more confusion. You're welcome to. He and I mean, we're different leaders with different opinions. I think this is the best path for you.
It is.
But I wasn't in that class that you initially had with him, and I haven't been a part of coaching you up to this point. So
yeah.
Now,
I totally agree.
And Dr. Barnes is your dissertation supervisor. You need to please her.
Okay.
That is the person whose advice you follow.
Okay.
Now, if you include Dr. Smith on your committee, then you have some explaining to do, some splaining. But I'm sure, as Brian says, he'll understand.
Yeah. No. It's good. We're good. I'm gonna just take this advice and hammer this little proposal out so that I can get out of this class and get going.
Good. That was the purpose of the call then, to give you a little direction moving forward. And that was actually really good advice, because you need to work closely with Dr. Barnes and stay focused, and I think she'll actually be a great resource for you with the work that you're doing. So I'm really excited to see what both of you do to kind of move forward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. She's actually sent me a CV. Her CV, and I'm like, she told me to send her one. I thought, okay, I don't have one of those. And she sent me a 4, 5, 6 page.
Well,
my gosh.
That's what CVs are meant to be. They're meant to be, first of all, you have to find stuff to fill 10 pages.
Oh my gosh. She has filled every inch of it. She has been around the world.
Well, and you have too in your different work areas, in the different positions that you have held, but you're just starting. Now, Brian, how will the academic cabinet that's going to review Starr's proposal, they'll come back with just one type of, will they say, yay, go ahead, or nay, you need to do this and this and this because we don't have enough information? Or how has the academic cabinet operated in your experience with students?
Yeah, so what'll happen is, at this stage, you're working with Dr. Payne and you're putting your best proposal forward, and Dr. Payne's role is to help you with that. And now that graduation's over, he was scrambling a lot to help the graduating students graduate by June 2nd. So now that he processed through like 40 dissertations or something like that. So hopefully he's dedicating, you can ask him questions. You can say, hey, is this thing ready to go? But to answer your specific question, then once you have this proposal done, it'll go to, I'm assuming, what will be the July academic cabinet meeting. And you have all the different directors of the program in there, and the academic dean and the registrar. And so everybody will look at that ahead of time at your document. Most of them will look at the document ahead of time. And then they might make some comments to each other and email that around a little bit to the different colleagues and say, hey, I really like where she headed with this, but I think she might need to make an adjustment here or there. But usually when it comes, it will be a rare thing after going through this class. The class is intended to set you up to succeed. Then the feedback from the academic cabinet is just meant to come back to you and say, hey, you're ready. You have the green light to move forward with this project on the condition that you address your research question this way, or your chapter 5. You might want to tweak that thing a little bit, but for the most part, that's what it's going to be like. So they'll come back to you and say, go for it. Maybe make some of these changes if they have some suggestions. I've seen them come through where they don't have any changes at all, and they just say, go for it. Mm-hmm. I've seen some of them get pretty intensely scrutinized, and but even then, it'll just be all in the spirit of
of helpfulness. Yeah, supporting you and heading you in the right direction. The one thing that I see is that in what I've read so far is you've got several research questions, and I want you to. Well, but this I've got them highlighted on page 2 questions. Is that the one?
Yeah.
What are the needs? What are the met needs of college supports, and what are the unmet needs in Fresno County? Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 research questions.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Well, I've seen. I looked at other parts, and these are the questions I'm going to answer. So you want to look at, I was highlighting, and I did a word search for research questions, and I think there's a couple of them, and you just kind of need to finalize those research questions and only focus on those when you're mentioning the term questions. Okay. Okay.
So, you can have questions that you're going to use for your interviewers, your interviewees, but they all have to go back to answering your research question.
Okay. Dr. Brian, would you be interested in being one of the persons to review the workbook by any chance?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, now that you're firmly set with Dr. Barnes and you have a path forward, I feel really good about that. And
me too.
have the direction, and then anything I can help, whether it's anything on the side, if you want to chip away at the business plan that has nothing to do with your final project, or if you want to table it for a year, I'm fine with whatever you want to do.
Okay.
I'm happy to look at to review the workbook as well.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, I think that was pretty much it, unless you have something else to say.
Okay, so Brian, you think she needs to, her lit review, I'm looking at, you've got around 10 to 15 pages now. Is that too much for the proposal? She kind of needs to condense that a bit.
10, 15, it's 89 pages.
I know, I'm just looking at chapter 2. I'm just looking at what I would consider your lit review, your review of the literature. And that's where you give, you're talking about barriers to higher ed. You're talking about transition issues, supports. Those are all part of what I would say a lit review, because that's what you have found that is lacking for these individuals, and creating a barrier for academic achievement for them. So it's just different, because then all of that I read, and then in chapter 3, that's where your lit review is, and then you have here they all are. Yeah, chapter 3. I'm just kind of scrolling through. So, you have a lot, because you mentioned all the Cal grants. You mentioned you have Affordable Care Act. That's a lot to bring into a lit review right now, Brian. Or does it matter how long it is? Can her lit review for the proposal be as long as the lit review for the?
So for for your proposal that's going to go to the cabinet, your chapter 1 should be 4 to 7 pages. Your chapter 2 should be 4 to 6 pages.
What is chapter 2?
Chapter 3 is the context. So that has all the historical and demographic information, the current situation.
Okay, so what I would call a chapter 1.
Yeah.
For a master's degree.
And then chapter 3 at BGU is the lit review, and your proposal should just be 5 to 8 pages.
Oh, okay.
So if you have...
Wait a minute.
Start again. What's chapter 1? What's that title of chapter 1?
Well, first of all, you should definitely make sure you go back to the final project handbook, which is just what I'm referring to right now.
Okay.
That's going to be, that's going to be your, it's not a good reference to say it's going to be your Bible. It's not going to be
her template. Her template.
But yeah. But you always want to refer back. So chapter 1 though is 4 to 6 pages. 4 to 6, they say actually.
Okay.
Chapter 2 is 4 to 6. That's your context. Chapter 1 is your introduction chapter. So that has your statement of the problem, statement of purpose, your research questions. All of that should be your audience, stakeholders, scope and limitations. All that should be in your chapter 1. Mm-hmm. Then chapter 2 is your context of 4 to 6 pages. That's the historical and demographic background, the current situation, the transformational value of the project. And again, all of these things you're just you're going to be tempted because you're a really gifted writer, Starr, just to kind of crank it, on that. But, definitely just try to be concise. And so what you will say in 1 or 2 sentences at this point might develop into 3 or 4 paragraphs
later on.
Okay. Okay.
And then your literature review is 5 to 8 pages. And you can go back and read through in the proposal what it says specifically. But again, you just want it to be super concise.
So I definitely need to shorten it up.
Yeah.
Probably.
You can try to, if the rest of your chapters are 4 and 5 pages and that one's 15, you can try to turn it in and see what they say. But I have a feeling that they would say, go back and make it more concise.
Right. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. Okay.
Chapter 4 is your biblical and theological reflection. And then chapter 5 is your project design and research methodology, where you'll, if you're doing interviews or what have you, you'll just describe what you're planning to do. Chapter 6 is your desired outcomes. That's just 2 to 3 pages, and it's just what you hope happens out of this. And then in your proposal, your chapter 7 is project outline, schedule, and future vision for the project. So that's where you would describe a little bit, hey, here's what I think I'm going to use my project for. I'm going to use it to drive my nonprofit organization in the business plan area, and I'm going to use it to do this and do that.
Okay.
And then when you do your actual chapter 7, then that'll be all of your recommendations that you have coming out of it.
Okay.
And then, of course, your reference list and potential sources. And that does need to be pretty extensive when you get your proposal in. You'll have more when you actually get into your dissertation, but.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. I think that's it.
All right. Well, I'm glad that I felt like this was a good time, and I'll make sure I send the recording to you so you can maybe pass it around to some of your other PLC members.
Okay.
If you would like to, but if you just want to keep it simple and move forward with finishing up with Dr. Payne, and then you'll really roll up your sleeves with Dr. Barnes.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
That's what I'm going to do.
And then also, Brian, Starr, you have 2 methods of citation. You have some footnotes, and then you have some APA.
Yeah, those all have to go.
Which one are you supposed to use?
APA.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I have to get rid. I have a lot of work to do, and I'm so glad.
It's a lot of massaging. You've done a lot of work,
right?
I think it's just looking at it, and I don't know. I think you maybe need to print it out and paste it up on all the wall, tape it up on a wall somewhere.
That'll help a lot.
Well, this is what you kind of do. You kind of look and see, like, all right, I've said that here. I don't need to say it there. where this goes. And I'm a visual person, so having to go back to page 10 to figure out if I've repeated everything on page 80.
Right. That's right.
So.
Okay. Well, thank you both so very much. I am so grateful for your this time. I feel so much better. I know you can both feel the relief.
Yeah.
I hope.
I'm so relieved. Yes, I can do this.
You can do this.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brian.
No problem. Starr, can we pray for you?
Yes, please do.
All right. God, I just lift up Starr. Thank you for the leadership gift that you've given her, and also just so many other gifts that she brings to the table. And as a transformational leader in her city, God, the way you've empowered her with the passion to achieve the purposes that you have for her there. But I pray right now, this can be a really intense part of the process. And even over the course of this whole year, I just feel like I've seen the enemy get in and distract so many and discourage so many students. So I pray against that in the name of Jesus. For Starr, I just pray for the clarity that comes from your spirit and for wisdom and discretion, and you give those things so freely. We praise you and thank you for some of the breakthrough that we had just now, and I'm just looking forward to see where all this leads. So I just pray for a special anointing on Starr as she moves forward in this process, that you would hear from you for the research that you have for her. And we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much. You too. Have a beautiful day.
All
okay,
right.
Starr, I want to talk to you too. So, bye, Brian.
I'll stop recording and then you guys can use the room.
Thank you so
thanks.
much.